Okay, I thought I'd give everybody a peek behind the scenes here as I ramp up efforts to bring out season 2. And the first thing that I'm working on behind the scenes is stadium renovation. I never really liked the fact that this is all a one-dimensional stadium, but I felt like because the board is up against the wall and I don't really have space to bring it out, that this is the way I had to construct the facade. But if I'm being honest with myself, I really didn't think this through as well as I could have. So I'm going to do something about that. So what I'm doing is I'm going to be putting pieces up against the stadium here. I'll be gluing them like that. And then I'm taking the grandstand piece here and extending it. And then I'm going to have pieces of foam board and you'll see that will come out and give it the three-dimensional look I'm looking for. Of course, I've got photographs of the crowd that I'll paste on here. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the upper tier as well. So one of the things that I will be working on in the background while I play through season 2 is modifying some figures. And here's the Fab 5 figures that you're all familiar with, and they're the poses that I have for all the teams currently. But my plan for season 3 ultimately will be to have offensive and defensive squads. And when I do that, I want to vary up the poses a little bit on the defense. So I've been working already modifying some of the Fab 5 figures in the different poses, taking their arms off, reattaching them with green stuff and glue. And I came up with a figure that I liked really well for a defensive end. And it's this guy right here. So I'm going to be making some copies, and I've already made quite a few. You can see here. The material that I use is smooth on liquid plastic, and for the mold is Mold Star 15, and that's a softer rubber. And I actually have the mold I'm using for that defensive end right here. And so I'm going to be making a bunch of copies of that in the background. So I'm thinking my defensive line will look something like this when I'm done for all the teams. You'll have the 3 all-purpose figures, 1 at nose tackle, 2 at defensive tackle, and 2 defensive ends. I also had some thought about, instead of using the 3 across all-purpose figures, to have a nose tackle in the middle, and this is the Mean 13 3-point stance figure. And you see how his one arm is molded into the body. I don't care for that too much, so I modified that a little bit and made one with the other arm sticking out slightly. And that figure might go at the nose. But season 3 is quite a ways off yet, so we'll see. And I welcome your comments to see what you think. Right after I made the first segment of this video, my phone died. So it's been a couple weeks. I've got a new phone. And the stadium renovations that I talked about at the top of the video are done. Now that that's done, I'm tossing around an idea for something that I might want to try to do on either end of the game board. I bought these truck bed lights from a company called Alpina, and they kind of look like stadium lights. And there's 8 lights altogether. And I was thinking I would extend the stadium on either side of the end of the board and then try to mount 4 lights on one side and 4 lights on the other side above that wall. Now, that's not getting done in time for Season 2. That's a futures project. And of course, the Alpina lights would not replace, but be in addition to the lights that I already have above the stadium. Speaking of football futures, for Season 3, expansion is in the plans. And here before you, you have the concept helmets for 2 of the teams. I've actually got 4 teams in mind. And as I finalize designs and uniforms, I'll reveal that on the channel. Okay, I was watching the Fat 8 channel, who I am a big fan of. And if you're into electric football, I highly recommend you check out his channel. Great content, great production, aces all around. His channel, in fact, is probably the biggest inspiration for what I do here. Now, we both use disc game pieces in our passing game, although we use them differently. He uses a ball on base passing method with his zone passing scheme, and it's really exciting to watch. Well, the wheels started to turn in my mind while watching that, and now in development, I'm working on an alternate passing system of my own that is inspired by what he is doing. That's all I'll say for now. If the idea is something that increases the fun level, we will have to consider using it in Season 3. Okay, so let's get into a couple things that you will see in Season 2. And the first thing I'm going to go over is overtime. I don't think I actually covered overtime at all in any of the tutorial videos. So the competition committee has convened, and this is what we came up with. Each team gets 1 play from the 20-yard line to score a touchdown. Whether it's a run or pass is determined by rolling a 10-sided dice. A roll of 1 to 2 is a run, and a roll of 3 through 10 is a pass. If Team A does not score a touchdown in their possession, then Team B gets their shot. And if they don't score, and it's a regular season game, then the game ends in a tie. However, if neither team scores a touchdown in their 1-play possession in the playoffs, then we go to a second overtime. And however many overtimes we need to determine a winner. If Team A scores a touchdown in their first possession, they go for a 1-point conversion, which is the ball on base extra point try from the 10-yard line. If Team B then scores a touchdown on their possession, they have to go for 2. That way, we won't have a tie. Now, in another scenario, what if Team A scores a touchdown and misses their extra point? If that happens and Team B scores a touchdown, then they only have to go for 1 instead of 2. But if Team B misses their extra point too, then the game ends in a tie. Unless it's the playoffs, then we continue. And of course, if Team A scores a touchdown and Team B doesn't, game's over, Team A wins. Or if Team A doesn't score a touchdown, but Team B does, game's over, Team B wins. The competition committee has also convened on another topic for Season 2, and that is to lengthen the white or medium range passing stick. The base white stick goes from 2 inches to 2.5 inches. The white stick with pressure goes from 2.5 inches to 3 inches. This change will, of course, affect the diameter of the white coverage circle. And if you have a question about how I determine the size of the coverage circles and what they're for, please consult the passing tutorial video. Okay, I have a modified fumble procedure. As you know, as I went over in an earlier video, the fumble occurs if the defensive player contacts the offensive player by back of base or knocks him over. Okay, and in the past I rolled a six-sided dice, and 1 to 3 was an offensive recovery, 4 to 6 was a defensive recovery to the closest unengaged player. We're changing that a little bit. Okay, so let's say we have a fumble. The first thing we do is we take a 4-sided dice, and each number here, 1 through 4, is going to correspond with a side of the player's base. So 1 is the front of his base, there's 2, there's 3, there's 4. So the first thing you do is you roll the 4-sider, and okay, in this case 4, that's this side. That means the fumble will be on this side of the player. Then, for the distance the ball is fumbled away from the player, we roll a 12-sided dice. 1 through 4 is a red stick distance. 5 through 8 is a white stick distance. And 9 through 12 is a blue stick distance from the player. And the stick is always placed straight in the middle of whatever side the fumble's coming from. So, for example, on that roll of 1, the ball would be right there, and then all unengaged players would be turned towards the ball, and the board would be turned on. Recovery is made by the first player who touches the ball with the front of his base or part of his figure, or is pushed into its side of base by a teammate. If the recovering player is a defensive player and he's not engaged, he can receive 1 straight pivot towards the opponent's goal line. Now remember, a fumble can only be advanced by an offensive player by the player who fumbled it. Otherwise, if another offensive player recovers, they're down at the point where they recover it. Now let's say on the side the player fumbles, let's say it's this side. If there's another player in the way of the stick path, whether it be his teammate or an opposing player, the player blocking that stick path is the one who recovers the fumble. I wanted to take a second to correct one error I found in the game call sheets that I presented to you in the last video. I had the probability backwards on the 3rd down and 5+ yards, and the words run and pass are transposed. So on a roll of a 10-sided die, this should read 1 run, 2 to 10 pass. Now for season 2, we will be running mostly 2-way players again, with the exception of 1 substitute, and that is this quarterback figure, which will come out on defense. This is a figure that you can purchase from bnut.com. Great figure. All of his figures are great. Highly recommend them. And so the quarterback figure will be swapped out on defense with one of these figures who will play linebacker. So the last thing for me to do before I start season 2 is to have a draft. And so what's going to happen is in all of the 8 teams of the AEFL, all of these bases will come off. After I take all the bases off the teams, each base will get a name and a position designated to it, And then we'll have a random lottery draft where the bases will be redistributed amongst all the teams of the AEFL. And then we'll be ready for season 2. Can't wait. Already have a 10-game schedule laid out. I hope to bring you more games soon. As you look at the 8 starting quarterbacks of the AEFL, I want to point out that since I kept statistics in season 1, I know who the great players are, the good players, and the Jags. So after the draft and looking at the rosters, I should be able to provide you with odds on the games and even give you a prediction on which team is favored to win that second season ring. And come to think of it, we'll probably do a preseason show on just that very topic. So stay tuned. Please like and subscribe, and thank you for watching.